Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month, teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching, as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out. Hi, everybody. It's Tim Hagen, and today, welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And we have a special guest with us, Ben White from Titus Talent Strategies. And we have kind of a special relationship with this firm. We do business with them. We partner with them. We share our information with them. We share each other's thought leadership. It's really what we call even a sister type of relationship. It's really been a fantastic partnership. And so I want to welcome Ben to our episode today. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and if you could, after that, tell us a little bit about Titus.
Yeah, so I'm in the recruiting space. I work for Titus Talent Strategies. I manage the Milwaukee team. So I've been in recruitment for about 10 years now. Probably been 11. I should update that in my head. It's been 11 years. And I've done it on the corporate side. I've done it on the agency side. And I've basically spent my entire career in the field of recruitment. And I now work for Titus Talent Strategies. We are a talent management firm, and we can do a lot of things for our clients, but we spend the vast majority of the time helping them address talent gaps. Finding out what exactly it is they are looking for. Really understanding their pain points. What matters to them, and then going out and engaging passive candidates. So, a way in which we're different is we don't post anything online. We don't have a database. The world is our database. We find out exactly what's important to you, and then we go find those top performers that you otherwise would not be able to engage. And that's what we do. We can do a few other things, but that's the meat and potatoes of it.
Well, and I think, obviously both of our companies have been hit in very different ways. Recruiting's been hit, coaching's been hit, positively, potentially not so positively. What are some of the things that you've seen in the talent development space in general, from, candidates, what companies are looking for, how they've been hit, et cetera? What are some of your views?
Yeah, what a weird year, right? It started off, I've been in recruitment, like I said, for about 11 years, and I've never seen a year like this, in the sense that it started off one way, right? It was a candidate market. You could not find the people. You posted an ad mid-January for any sort of specialized role, and good luck. You fast forward 3 quarters, and those same people, there's a mountain of them. There's so many people who are adversely impacted by COVID and the way it hit the economy, really the global economy, that there are just so many different roles that are just aren't needed, and so many people who find themselves looking for a job when they could trip over the opportunities that would have been available to them just a few months earlier. So what I've seen is a lot of adapting, because it's been a roller coaster of a year. You're talking about record low unemployment to record high unemployment, and then what I've seen is an economy that's climbing back, and a lot of people are hiring. And that's dependent on industry, of course. But I think it's really just right now, what I see is the constant juggling and adapting, and companies trying to be pragmatic in their hiring in case there is a little bit of a dip again. I would say it's a hard year to predict. Looking forward, it is, I think there's a lot of optimism, but there's still a little bit of trepidation there. So just from a 10,000 foot view, in terms of recruiting and hiring. That's what I've seen so far. It's been interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because I think sometimes we forget that we had a record low unemployment. That was only 9-10 months ago.
Right.
I mean, think about that. And so,
Yeah.
from your vantage point, and from Titus as a general resource for your clients in the marketplace, what's some advice you would give companies? Because that's a pretty wide dip,
Yeah.
in terms of recruiting and talent management. What are some of your thoughts?
Yeah. My advice is, to really think about your long-term needs and think about the hiring that you're going to have to do, and Um, don't wait until it's too late to start. I have a lot of clients, and they'll say, "Hey Ben, we're looking at hiring this person in early Q1," and I think sometimes they underestimate the time that it truly takes
Hmm.
to go out and engage, to screen, to bring forward, get an accepted offer, assuming everything goes right, and the person goes, "Yeah, I want to start," and then they have this, a 2-week period in which they're going to give their notice and then start, and then there's the onboarding and ramping up. Um, I think there's a lot of optimism going into 2021, but some companies are still being a little bit more cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I would say you need to evaluate that, just given the timelines, given how long things take. That's a piece of advice I would probably give.
So it's interesting to hear you, because one of the things, as you know, we don't do any recruiting or work in that
Yeah.
field. How is that interaction, the recruiting conversation, the place where you do recruiting, how have those things changed because of the crisis?
Yeah, well, there's a lot more people willing to talk to recruiters. It's
Mm-hmm.
funny how that kind of works, the ebb and flow of being a recruiter. In January, you couldn't get candidates to talk to you, but you could get hiring managers to talk to you. And now, you maybe the hiring managers aren't as interested, but the candidates sure are. So I've seen a little bit of a switch and a 180 there. I think I think one of the things that is different, and you have to be cognizant of as a recruiter, is just to be sensitive to the situation. A lot of people in a really tough, dire situations, and they talk about COVID fatigue. In general, just being tired of how things are, and the restrictions and stuff. But imagine being a job seeker in that time. Imagine being someone who was adversely impacted in early March, and maybe they've never found themselves in that position in their entire career. And now here they are after an arduous search of struggling and the ups and downs, let alone, add that to the fact that maybe they've got kids home who they're trying to help with Zoom school. It's just it's a very challenging time. So I think one of the things that I, advise the recruiters or people in the space is just a general empathy towards the struggle people are, have endured this year, that came out of nowhere.
Well, it's funny because yesterday I was interviewing Dave Stevens from InPro, and they've worked with your firm, and he made one of the greatest comments. And we were talking more about sales and virtual selling and sales coaching. And he said, we really have to change the way we interact with people because of everything, because especially salespeople, we can be so rhetorical. And I said, oh, what do you mean? He goes, you can't get on the phone with someone who works at a hotel and say, so how's business?
Right.
Because you're going to come off lacking empathy, lacking sensitivity. Have you noticed that in the recruiting field as well, that we've almost got to change our language and the way we approach not only clients, but also candidates?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I would say with clients, it's super clear. I mean, you'd have to
Sure.
lack almost all emotional intelligence, just call and say some of those things. But with candidates too, it's the same thing. I mean, just like a client, just like a company is adversely impacted and they've seen a dip in their business, you see the same thing with candidates who have been misplaced, or they've been struggling. They're just, even the people who haven't been let go, but they know their company is going through a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Just existing can be stressful. Just
Yep.
the concern, like, hey, are we going to turn the corner as an organization? So I think when you call and you reach out to candidates and you go, hey, I've got an opportunity, I think you have to understand that there's a little bit more on the line right now. Like, they're like, well, if I make a change, I mean, how am I to know this company's in good financial standing? And there's
Right.
always that concern, but there's certainly more concern now when you have economic volatility. Um, so yeah, I think you need to be aware of that. It is perfectly okay to say, "Hey, I know we're just talking. This is the first time we've talked, but how are you doing? How's
Yeah.
everything going?" Um, and I think it's more welcome than ever.
Yeah. I had a client in March at a company that you guys work with as well. And it was really interesting. She was upset about the way things were going. She wasn't getting promoted fast enough. And she kind of spouted off a little bit that she had all these opportunities. And I think we were in February. And I remember saying to her, I said, just remember, the grass is not always greener. Things can change quickly. Now, I in no way am pretending I predicted the COVID crisis.
Right.
She was interviewing with 3 companies and felt like she had her pick. 2 went bankrupt. The 3rd stopped hiring. And
Wow.
because of that, she really got faced a little bit with this mirror in her face saying, we kind of heard what you're complaining about. And she's rebuilding her career. And it was a really good lesson for her. And she's taking the lesson. It has really just changed so quickly in such a short period of time. So if you were to give, let's say, candidates in general, 1 or 2 bits of advice, what would you say because of everything that's gone on and as we enter 2021?
Yeah, the best piece of advice I think I can give is just to understand how few and far opportunities might be. And because of that, preparation is so important.
Mm,
I remember really early on in my career going to interviews and just saying, you know what, Ben, you are a people person, you are a good talker. Is research truly necessary? The answer is an overwhelming yes. Yes, it is necessary. Um, so for me, the one piece of advice I would give is that as the market becomes more competitive, it only becomes more important to go into interviews and any sort of situation where you're networking to be more prepared. Don't just wing it. There are too many people who are, have a similar skill set, similar ability, similar background. There's just very little margin for error, and you should prepare as such.
well, and I think about um, even some of the adaptability with coaching. Now, we've been doing
Yeah,
virtual coaching. You guys have been a virtual company for 10 plus years. So both
yeah,
our companies kind of gravitated into this time probably better than some other firms just because of our own internal practices. Yet I look at salespeople today. I mean, we have to sell completely differently than being in the person's office. Have you found that with candidates that they need to prepare more for that as something they probably didn't have to like 10, 12 months ago, being virtual, I know video interviewing's out there, but this has really kind of changed things for the candidate from that perspective as well. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that it probably fast forwarded the adoption of video interviews a
Yeah.
decade. In 10 months, we probably accomplished what would have taken 10 years. I mean, there are people who had
Mm.
never done that ever, like in their entire life, had never done a video interview, and now have probably done 5 to 6 of them. Um, yeah, it's so interesting from my perspective because I used to have candidates, a year ago be like, "Oh, video, why? I want to go meet people. Let me shake some hands." I'm like, I totally. And now it is so commonplace. It's a 180.
Yeah. Well, and I think about, just with sales, the long term effects. And I
Yeah.
would say positively. And I read something by McKinsey that 68% of buyers today prefer virtually buying versus having someone come to their office and sell them, which I thought was interesting. Do you mentioned video interviewing being fast forwarded 10 years. Do you see any other changes that you think will be more sustainable because of what we just went through?
Oh yeah, I see flexibility as the next frontier on talent attraction and retention
Mm,
competition. um, you can't unring this bell, right? You had people who were doing a job and they probably wanted some flexibility, and the employer said, "Hey, Ben, you cannot do your job from home. That is impossible." Well, 2021 hits, and it's July, and Ben is successfully doing his job from home. And so
right.
many people have seen, yeah, we absolutely can do this remotely. And there are companies who have adapted and they've said, okay, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to do it moving forward. And then
Yeah.
you have companies who I know as soon as they can, they're going to revert back to saying, no, we want you on site. And I
Yep.
totally understand the merits of that, but they're going to have to compete against those companies who offer flexibility to candidates. And that is going to be tough.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I haven't thought about it from that standpoint because I would tell you we have a client out in New York who was in the midst of building an addition, and they canceled the addition and saved about from what I've heard, $1.5 million. And then they found out that their people really enjoyed working from home. And it was really interesting because when they found that people enjoyed that, they had never done a virtual training session, virtual meeting with customers. It was always in office, gorgeous place. And it really has had a positive impact on them. Now, if they had challenging times, of course, we both know that. So it's interesting to hear you say that. So one last bit of advice that you would give to whether it's companies today or candidates is kind of a summary statement based on what you've seen in the marketplace this year.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I'll start with the candidates here. I've given the advice of, I've given the advice of being prepared. So I'm going to reiterate that because I just feel like it is absolutely so mission critical to go in and be the best version of yourself. But I would say one of the things that I don't think people do, people, they touch up their resume, they touch up their LinkedIn profile, they apply. But I think one of the things people don't do that they could do more of, if you are in the job market, is network. And lean on some of those relationships you've built. People build relationships. They make these friendships at work, and then they go to a different place, and sometimes they tend to forget about those friendships. But now is a great time because you can only apply to so many roles, to reach out to some of the people that you've worked with in the past and go, hey, I just want you to know I'm in the market. I really enjoyed our time together. I respected you as a colleague. If you think of anything that might be a good fit for me, or you know of any openings where it might benefit me to learn about them, please let me know. Just because I feel like it's a different avenue. So many people, they set up alerts, they look on Indeed, they look on LinkedIn, but don't forget about people and those relationships and people you've made an impression on and an impact on in the past. And then for organizations, don't forget about candidate experience. It is so important. People have been through a really challenging year, just like you as an organization have been through a really challenging year. And one of the ways that every single company competes when it comes to talent attraction and ultimately retention is by giving them a great experience as a candidate, and then of course onboarding. Those things impact retention massively.
Well, and I think sometimes I love the advice about networking, because I would tell you, for us, some of our traveling clients stopped this year, and I have found that we've been more productive with relationship building. We have more time to invest in phone calls and Zoom sessions. And it's really changed, because I think we often think about relationships just being sitting down at a coffee shop. And one of our sectors we work in is agricultural. They like to be on the farm. They like to be with the grower because they can share in that. They're finding out the same thing, that this is saving a lot of time. Now, that does not diminish the value of being in person with somebody, but it really has kind of helped the industry evolve in terms of the way we look at networking, talent acquisition, talent retention, things like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. And let me give a little bit of an editorial. We have seen firsthand what Titus does. If you're looking for a firm that does some really creative work, and as Ben said, their primary focus is recruiting, but they do so many things. They have a great assessment platform, Predictive Index, that they partner with, that does some really great things for candidates inside and outside organizations. If you're looking for an organization to help you with talent acquisition, there is no one better than Titus. Thanks for your time, Ben.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagan and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn, and more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.